Good evening, everybody. Whudey, aka T, is the master of two fake fantasy sports, baseball and football. He's the host of Project Roto's Perusing the Perimeter, and he still owns his Dusty Baker voodoo doll. This is the man who inspired my Ginger Ninja hashtag, and his avatars are legendary. How are you doing tonight, T?
I'm doing all right, man. It's a good thing that fall's starting to roll around. The sun's not out like it normally is during the summer at 8:30, so I'm able to put my daughter to bed a little bit earlier than normal due to the fact that I can say it's dark outside now and there's no argument.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I know. It's trying to get everybody to wrangle the kids and then do the important stuff, talk about football, right?
Right.
Looks like you got your Bengals hat on. You're prepared to represent. I got my white check and George bobblehead. So let's get started. So, were you the happiest boy in the land when the Bengals signed the Ginger Ninja to an extension this offseason?
To be honest with you, I wasn't the happiest person in the land, but I understand it. I get it. I'd rather have the contract issue, put to rest instead of it being, a week-to-week thing with the media. You know how the media, especially, we can go back to Flacco's year when he won the Super Bowl where, before every game it was talking about, whether or not Flacco would get that contract, this and that and the other. So it's good that we can put that to rest. He's got the contract. It's not something that's lingering over his head. And now he can just concentrate on football and performing. So, it's kind of a thing where, I would like to see how the season played out, but I like the Ginger Ninja enough to accept the fact that this is the direction that the franchise is starting to go.
Well, they've had kind of a history of being a little cheap when it comes to players, but I think they actually picked a pretty good. They got him a little early, so they probably got a little bit of discount, and it doesn't seem like it's that super guaranteed over-the-top kind of Flacco deal, so probably going to leave some money. They still have A.J. Green to sign, right?
Yes, yeah, we do. We're probably going to do that at the end of the year. We got to get Ben Jarvis, Greenellis' contract off the books. And a couple of vets that, like Terrence Newman's contract will probably be up. We'll probably ship him out. Pac-Man will probably restructure his deal. We extended Burfict, so he's locked up. So all of our key pieces are locked up. They're all relatively young. Yeah, A.J. Green's probably the only one left to get his deal.
Yeah, and I would say that most people would agree that, A.J. Green's kind of the superior talent, but it's like you got to get that quarterback kind of set. You don't want to leave that going. Before I continue, I just want to say that the official beer of this show will be the Boulder Shake Chocolate Porter. Fantastic beer. I think it won some kind of gold medal, but who cares? It just tastes good. So it's my dessert beer. That's how we do it. I just have a reputation. So after the Titans gave up 200-plus rushing yards to the Cowboys, are Giovanni Bernard and Jeremy Hill licking their chops? They're all excited about this week?
They should be. Everyone in the industry, everyone outside of the industry, kind of had an idea that this would be what the Bengals are going to try and accomplish this year. I think that, although, Jeremy Hill got 33 touches or, 33 snaps last week, I still think Giovanni Bernard gets the lion's share of the carries, gets the lion's share of the touches and the snaps. I think that was more of a situation where, A.J. Green went out of the game. Obviously we're trying to keep the Atlanta offense off the field, so why not turn to the run game? So I think it's a case-by-case situation with Jeremy Hill week to week, but I do think that, we're probably going to utilize the run again this week, heavy, early, and often.
Yeah, it was, I think Marvin Jones was quick to say after that first game, all right, guy got 4 carries, but was going to get more, and against the Falcons, that was, the game plan, and that was certainly the Cowboys' game plan last week in demolishing the Titans, as we all knew it was going to happen, right? It's a big prediction. So you mentioned A.J. Green. What is up with his toe? I haven't really heard a thing since he left the game on Sunday.
Yeah, Marvin's pretty tricky when it comes to injury reports. He tends to be on the side of trying to be ho hum, trying to keep as much information as possible to himself, and just looking at the schedule, I think all signs are pointing to AJ Green sitting out this week. We have the bye week next week, and then week 5 we have the Patriots. So I think it's when we looked at the schedule, having the early bye week, a lot of people, kind of threw their arms up in the air and, kind of said, what the hell? But now this bye week's kind of actually a blessing so that A.J. Green can get 100% healthy. It's a turf toe issue. Those things can linger. Obviously, it can hinder, his top end speed. So getting him healthy, I think, is the main priority, and I think that's what they're going to plan to do. But they want to try and keep the ace up the sleeve and kind of, make it so that the Titans still have to game plan for AJ Green being on the field.
Yeah, I'll just say that last week Jason McCourty, their top cornerback, got hurt, and Des Bryant pretty much had his way with the other two cornerbacks. He had one play where he basically shoved Cody Sensabaugh aside while catching the ball with the other hand, just like he's playing against the Pee Wee guy. So, yeah, it would be a nice equalizer to have him out. So who would be the number 2 guy then if A.J. Green's out?
I love Mohamed Sanu, and obviously, last week was, a blessing in disguise for not only my fantasy teams, but, for the Cincinnati Bengals in that they have a wide receiver that can step up when AJ went down. Obviously, Marvin Jones not being there is a huge hit. Eifert not being there is a huge hit. So I think that Sanu right now, albeit he only got, targeted maybe 4 to 5 times last week, only had 3 catches for 80-something yards and a touchdown. But I think that, now that, AJ's out, they have a week to game plan around what they want to do with Sanu. I think that Sanu gets the lion's share of the targets, even though he's not playing AJ Green's position. I think that'll belong to Brandon Tate, but we've all seen what Brandon Tate's capable of. I trust Sanu's hands a little bit more than Brandon Tate, albeit Brandon Tate's playing AJ Green's position. So if I had to pick a wide receiver that's going to do something in AJ Green's absence, it's going to have to be Sanu, with a little sleeper love for Dane Samsabacher, even though I can't stand Ohio State players. They're looking for him. He's kind of a Wes Welker kind of thing for us. So I like his skill set for the Bengals and being able to be a part of this offense this week with AJ being out.
Yeah, I actually forgot about Tate, and then I remembered the Sanu throw, so he could, come in there and play a little backup quarterback, right, and mess things up for the Titans. So that's a good thing. Yeah, it is. You got a 2-0 team, but you definitely have some injury concerns. I guess, the bye weeks had a good time. So how's the defense looking so far this year?
I was kind of nervous about the defense this year. Going into it, obviously, we lost our defensive coordinator, Mike Zimmer, to the Minnesota Vikings. And I absolutely love Zimmer. I think Zimmer is one of the more fantastic defensive minds to ever grace the football field. And losing him was a big blow. But I think that, since we brought the defensive and the offensive coordinators up in-house, the Zimmer mindset has kind of, it seems to have stayed with that defense. It seems like, Burfict's carrying over from what he did a year ago, albeit he's dealing with some injuries off and on during the games and off the field. But as a whole, they're relatively healthy, and that's all you can ask for, especially as a Cincinnati Bengals fan on the defensive side of the football. So as long as they're healthy, I like this defense the rest of the way. I think that they can compete. You saw it last week. We put the clamps on the high-powered Atlanta Falcons offense and limited them to 10 points. And I think that, the defensive game plan, Zimmer put in place these last 4 years prior has really done wonders for this team. And I think that, this defense will be all right this year.
Yeah, that defense was definitely a big part of how the Bengals have kind of turned around without anybody noticing, because it's been like the Ravens and Steelers division, but I think the Bengals seem to be the clear top team. So maybe besides the obvious position at quarterback, where do you think the Bengals have a clear personnel advantage over the Titans, and what kind of matchups have you worried coming into this game?
As far as the matchups are concerned, obviously you got to start down in the trenches. I really like what our offensive line has been able to do, keeping Andy Dalton clean. I don't think he's had a sack within these first two games. So that's something that's going to be, kind of the key going into this game. Uh, the Titans like to, try and, cause some pressure up front. And if they can't get that pressure up front and giving Andy Dalton time to throw, I think that's going to be a huge key in whether or not, we come out with the W in this game.
Yeah, that's true. I think I read somewhere that Dalton hadn't been officially pressured yet this year. So yeah, the Titans got some pressure on Romo early. Casey got a couple early sacks, and then it kind of fell apart because the offense was pretty horrible. So tell me, I mean, this is your Twitter handle, so I think I kind of already know the answer, but what's up with this whole Whudey chant? I still haven't quite figured it out.
Okay, well, I mean, back in the 80s, when we were good, you hear Chris Collinsworth talk about it every week on Sunday Night Football, and how he has to relive, losing to the San Francisco 49ers twice. But back then, when I was a young boy, and these Bengals were actually pretty good, the Whudey chant, Whudey think gonna beat them Bengals? Nobody. And that's kind of where it started from, and it's just kind of been the battle cry for the Bengals ever since then. So Whudey's just a chant. Obviously I can't stand the Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Even more because of what Cowher decided to say after they won that Super Bowl back in 2005, 2006, where he started the whole Whudey chant, and so Whudey is it's kind of a Cincinnati thing. It lets you're dealing with a Cincinnati cat and you're dealing with a Cincinnati fan, and it's the way we kind of greet each other down here, or up here, I guess.
That's right. So, do you feel like there's a ton of pressure in the franchise? They got to get a playoff win this year or else.
You know what? I think so. I think there's a lot of pressure, but I think that the pressure's more on Marvin than anything else. Obviously everyone's going to point to Andy Dalton and saying, it's Andy Dalton's fault. He's gone to the playoffs 3 times and he's had subpar numbers in each game. I put the blame on Jay Gruden, but, nobody's going to actually come out and say shit like that. So, with Andy Dalton going into his 4th year, Cincinnati Bengals fans, some of them, the crazy ones that I don't like to deal with, they're not really putting, this kind of in perspective where, we had Carson Palmer, they supported Carson Palmer until his legs broke off, and and he decided he wasn't going to play for us anymore. And I think that what Andy has done, people just kind of discredited it just because of the fact that we haven't gotten a win. So I think the pressure's more on Marvin Lewis, though. Marvin Lewis has been here for about fucking 12, 11 years already. So it's time for him to take that next step. It's time for him to go ahead and get a playoff win, under his belt, because we've been there, 4, 5, 6 times under him, and we haven't gotten past that point. So it's put up or shut up time for Marvin Lewis, I think.
Yeah, I think he's the second highest tenured guy. Now, there was a theory. I was listening to the RotoViz podcast today. They came up with this interesting theory regarding fantasy football. If a guy has a boring name, people just underrate him automatically. And I think Andy Dalton probably qualifies for the boring name, Like if you say Peyton Manning, you get all excited, or Tom Brady. But, Andy Dalton just sounds like, an insurance salesman. So maybe there's a bit of the name aspect to it. But I think Peyton went 0-3 in the playoffs before he won a game, And he kind of sucked the year they won the Super Bowl in the playoffs. And people don't really mention that. So there you go. It's a team effort.
Definitely is. And I think people are quick to. I think there's a lot of things that come in with the hate with Andy Dalton. Besides the hair color, A lot of people talk about the arm strength, and I think that the arm strength's actually improved this year tenfold. Yeah, the first 3 seasons it wasn't great. I think his accuracy has always been kind of something where if he improved on it, he could really excel in keeping the ball, from turning over the football. Andy Dalton, these first 2 games, he hasn't had a turnover yet, and I think that that's what he's decided to focus on going into this year, limiting the mistakes. Yeah, that may make him more of a game manager, so to speak. But he's still going to air it out. We got the weapons to air it out. We got Giovanni Bernard picking up, 10 to 20 yards on screen passes. So his numbers aren't going to be affected. It's just all about him taking care of the football. And I think that you're onto something where, people are just kind of like, oh, it's Andy Dalton. He's not a first-round pick. He wasn't a first overall selection. He was drafted in the second round, so, automatically people were going to go, hey, well, there's a reason why he was drafted in the second round. But, at the same time, what he's done so far, I fully support and I get it behind it 100%. And I can't wait for these fair weather fans to all of a sudden start singing his praises because of us getting back to the playoffs hopefully this year and finally hopefully winning one of the games.
Yeah, and watch him just pull off that, great playoffs, and he wins again, and then we have another guy who's won a Super Bowl, and then you'll be like, all right, yeah, we're good. I think you're the fan base that, like, you win a Super Bowl, you're like, okay, I'm pretty good for, like, the next 10 years, not, like the Patriots or Steelers who feel like they need to win every year, or else, it's a disappointment, which is a little bit of pressure. But let's talk about your show. So, Perusing the Perimeter, I'm a big fan of your Fantasy Football Summit. I'm wondering, you plan on doing that again, or is that kind of a once-a-year type thing?
Right now, it's just kind of a once-a-year type thing, kind of to get people prepared for the upcoming season. The year before, I did it in July. No, I did it in June, and that was because a good friend of ours, JD Beckler on Twitter, he actually came down from Cleveland. He was actually at some conference like down the street from my house. So we hung out for a week and decided to put the Fantasy Football Summit together. And then this year, I was sitting there thinking about whether or not I wanted to do it again. And a lot of people liked when I did it the year before, so I decided to bring it back this year. And I really liked doing it this year, the way that we did it this year. It was much casual format. It was a lot more easier for me to get people on and scheduling them to come on and this, and that, and the other. So I think it might be a yearly thing as long as, my boss X doesn't fire me or, can the show or anything like that. But as long as I'm over at Project Roto and I'm doing podcasts, you can expect that probably once a year for sure.
Yeah, I like you guys did the one-letter thing. So can I get, let's see, so X and T, so I can get Z? It'd be Z? Just call me Z. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't work.
Z?
But,
all right.
So talking just fantasy football for a second. So do you have any favorite like waiver wire pickups this week? This seems like the week of the injured running back. So who are some guys you kind of like?
Yeah, out of all the running backs, obviously you gotta, if you have, okay, first off, if you're playing in a league that does waiver priority, get the fuck out of that league. Obviously you want to play in a league where you're tossing up FF dollars, and a lot of people are going to be spending all those dollars on Niles Davis, and rightfully so. What he did last week, and we kind of knew this about Niles Davis. I know a lot of people, who drafted Jamal Charles, drafted Niles Davis as a handcuff, rightfully so. But if you didn't do that, obviously you got to get on the wire, you got to go grab him. But out of the other running backs that are, you got Ahmad Bradshaw, you got Bobby Rainey, you got Donald Brown. There's a few running backs you can go out there and go grab and scoop. Out of those group, I would lean more to Rainey. I think that, his skill set, I loved him when he was up in Baltimore. I thought that, he would overtake Bernard Pierce at some point. Obviously, that wasn't the case when they let him go last year, and he ended up in Tampa Bay after spending a grip in Cleveland, I believe. So down there in Tampa Bay, I'm not really sold on Doug Martin producing this year. So I think that, if you're playing long term, I think that you also have a better shot at getting Bobby Rainey. as opposed to trying to spend all your dollars on Niles Davis. I would go Bobby Rainey the rest of the way because I think that Bobby Rainey can probably take the job away from Doug Martin. And with Doug Martin dealing with injury issues already to start this year, it's only a matter of time where it just breaks down completely and Bobby Rainey just takes over by himself.
Yeah, and another key with Bobby Rainey is the fact that they're playing on Thursday, so you think that Doug Martin will turn it around in 3 days. Plus, it's just the coaching thing. It's like, their guy, that's not their guy, so they'll just take the best guy. And he had a really good game last week. And it's just the injury fill-ins made me a little nervous. Maybe that's why I didn't like Forsett last week, because you just feel like some of those guys are just kind of temporary. It's like, yeah, I mean, I picked up Matt Asiata because I had Adrian Peterson. That's something you didn't really think was going to happen. So he had a good week, but I don't really feel like he's a guy who's going to hold you the rest of the year. But Niles Davis obviously already had, it seems like every time he's in, he has 2 touchdowns, or he gets injured. Don't mention that part. You have Kerry Robinson, who probably played for a few weeks. Donald Brown, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks. But then you got to look at the injury and see, like an injury that Ryan Matthews has might last longer. And heck, you can pick up if Jeremy Hill's in your league. He looks pretty good to get a pretty similar workload than he had last week. Short touchdown, he can probably get you 15 points, no problem. So it is kind of deep, and people don't even really think about wide receiver. So are you the kind of guy who would grab like Josh Gordon to hold on to him, even though we still don't really know how long he's going to be suspended, or what do you think about that?
I'm not a fan of it, to be honest with you. Unless I was a Cleveland Browns fan, I just can't see myself, especially in a week-to-week sport that is fantasy football, and that things can happen from week to week, and you're gonna need roster space to accommodate some of those things, and you're kind of crippling yourself right now by holding on to Josh Gordon. Say you have Josh Gordon, but then you had AJ Green and Jamal Charles on the same team. Now all of a sudden you're stuck in a position where maybe Josh Gordon's the only spot on your roster that's expendable, and you just spent all your FAB dollars picking him up, so you can't cut him because you're waiting for him to come back week 12, week 13, or whenever he decides to come back, and you're just leaving yourself really kind of handcuffed to limiting your options from week to week and being able to go out on the wire and pick up certain guys based on matchups, or being able to fill in those injury holes that are bound to happen to any fantasy football team throughout a 16-week season.
Yeah, I was definitely borderline on keeping him because I picked him up in my league when it was going to be 8 games and he was coming to week 10, and you can get maybe 4 weeks out of him. Plus, who knows how good he'd be straight up. And now I'm hearing 10 weeks, which means week 12, which means 2 weeks of fantasy goodness. So unless you have a really deep bench, you're kind of screwed. I had to dump him for the 1 week guy of the week last week, which was Justin Hunter. So I got double pain by having him on my fantasy team and watching him in person drop 2 passes. Yay! you feel the pain. I think you understand. You've been there.
I mean, I actually own Josh Gordon in a keeper league, and it's tough because I'm only allowed to have 4 running backs rostered on my squad, and one of my running backs is Jamal Charles. And actually, I have Niles Davis already. I drafted him as a handcuff, thank God. But my other 2 running backs are actually your team's running backs, so ooh, I'm in kind of a tough spot right now, debating on whether or not to start Sean Green and Bishop Shanky week to week.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, there are a lot of people who started a lot of Titans last week, and when they only had like 40 snaps, I mean, I think John Green had a really good per carry average, but yeah, it didn't go so well. So what do you think about the new Icky Shovel commercial going on, where he's doing a little dance when he's at the deli counter? Have you seen that one?
Oh, yeah. Got some cold cuts. Boom. I mean, if people don't know, okay, first off, I was talking to the missus about this last night, and that I wish they had him in Bengals colors. I get it. I understand it. Probably whole marketing thing. The trademarks, all that stuff like that. But get him in an orange jersey at least, or maybe just like a black jersey. Something. Red, just automatically doesn't even like bring anybody, that wasn't paying attention to football in the '80s and early '90s, any kind of relevance to what team he played for. But Ickey Woods is a legend here in Cincinnati, just due to the fact that that dance. I remember doing the dance when I was 6, 7 years old, watching the Bengals play, and that's actually the reason why I fell in love with the Bengals, is due to Ickey Woods. So I love the Ickey Woods dance. It's nice to see him back on TV. He's had some rough years the last couple of years, losing his son uh, to an asthma attack on the football field. It's been pretty rough for him, but I'm glad to see he's out there doing his thing. In part of the commercial, and I wish it would bring more attention to the Bengals, but I'll take what I can get and smile every single time it comes on.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a very memorable season. So what's your bottom line on the game? What's your prediction for Sunday?
You know what? I mean, the Bengals have a history of playing, I guess, to their talent, or to the opposing talent. And I just don't want them to, get big heads and be like, oh yeah, we're 2-0. Oh, we got the Titans coming into town. They couldn't do shit against the Cowboys. We should fucking crush them. I just hope that the mentality stays the same. It's a week to week thing. Don't underestimate the Titans. Get caught sleeping. On defense. And to be honest with you, after last week and what I saw against the Ravens, I don't see why it can't be a close game between the two squads. Obviously, with the Titans, there's a lot of question marks to be had with this team going into Week 3, which really shouldn't be. But with the running back position being kind of in limbo, considering that you guys drafted Shanky for a reason apparently, but I guess not. Then you got Justin Hunter on the outside. You got Kendall Wright, and our quarterbacks are good. They're not great. They're good. So they're susceptible to getting burned on the big play. And obviously, if Burfict's not being able to go, or he suffers an injury during the game, then obviously, Jake Locker becomes a factor just due to the fact that he's a running quarterback. We have problems with contain. If we can maintain our contain, on the outsides and up the middle, so that he doesn't get those escapes. He picks up, 6, 7 yards on scrambles and extends, drives. I think it could be a pretty good game. If I had to give a score, I would probably go, like 28 to 10.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna give Titans a little more credit. I'm gonna go 27-17 Bengals. Sorry, Titans. Let's pretend that I'm reverse jinxing them, but I'm not. All right, well, T, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time and attention. Tell everybody where they can find you online, on Twitter, podcast sites, all that good stuff.
All right, folks. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Whudey, spelled with a U, not an O. And follow my work over at projectroto.com. Perusing the Perimeter, the blog will be out weekly with my rankings. And Perusing the Perimeter, the podcast, you guys can find us on iTunes. You can find the link being tweeted out by me weekly. You can also find that within the Perusing the Perimeter blog over on Project Roto as well. Other than that, make sure you follow my co-host at Slim Cliffy as well. Great dude, knows his stuff about baseball and hockey. And yeah, I'm Zach. Hopefully, it's just a good game. Obviously, you're a Titans fan, and I actually have I don't even know what you would call him, like an uncle-in-law that's a Titans fan. So there's a slim chance I might see myself at the Bengals game this weekend, enjoying it with him if he decides to come up. But if not, we'll have some fun times on Sunday tweeting back and forth to each other.
Oh yeah, no doubt. All right, everybody. So Whudey on Twitter, and his avatar game is almost as good as the Jinja Ninja is a quarterback. So don't forget that. You can find me Zach_Law on Twitter, and also fantasysports.org. We'll be having an interview with Pat Fitzmaurice coming out tomorrow, doing an Ask Your Fantasy Football Expert, and you know where to find me. Just go to Twitter. So thanks, everybody. Good times, and always know your enemy. And we're just going to say go Bengals and go Titans just a little bit.